The court of heaven has ruled. Your name was in the verdict. Listen closely, because this moment did not arrive by accident. Something has shifted in the unseen, and your spirit felt it before your mind could explain it. The pressure you carried without language, the waiting that felt heavier than it should have, the prayers that seemed to echo longer than expected, none of that was wasted. Heaven was not silent. Heaven was deliberate. There are seasons when God comforts his people, and there are seasons when God convenes judgment. This is not a season of explanation. This is a season of resolution. Scripture says in Daniel chapter 7 verse 10 that the court was seated and the books were opened. That tells us something powerful. God does not rule randomly. He rules righteously, with records, with testimony, with verdicts. And when a verdict is issued, it does not require your striving to enforce it. It requires your alignment to receive it. Some of you have been faithful longer than anyone noticed. You obeyed when obedience cost you. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You forgave without apology and endured without applause. And you wondered quietly if heaven saw it. Let me say this clearly. It was all documented. Not only your actions, but the opposition against you. Not only your prayers, but the resistance to them. Romans chapter 8 verse 33 asks, "Who shall bring a charge against God's elect?" That is not a poetic question. It is a legal one, and the answer is being demonstrated right now. The court of heaven has spoken. The case has been settled, and what is being released carries your name on it. Number 1. The court of heaven is not symbolic. It is a real spiritual system. You need to understand this first, because everything else rests on it. The court of heaven is not a metaphor God uses to sound poetic. It is not symbolic language meant only to inspire emotion. It is a real spiritual system where matters are weighed, accusations are addressed, and authority is exercised. God is loving, yes, but he is also just, and justice always requires order. Scripture gives us repeated glimpses into this reality. Job chapter 1 verses 6 through 7 describes a moment when the sons of God present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser is present among them. That tells us something most believers overlook. Spiritual conflict is not always about power, it is often about permission. The enemy does not only roar like a lion, he files accusations. And accusations are not answered with noise, they are answered with rulings. This explains why some of your battles did not respond to prayer the way others did. You prayed, fasted, worshipped, obeyed, and still felt restrained. Not because God ignored you, but because something was being reviewed. Heaven does not dismiss cases emotionally. It examines them righteously. Evidence is presented. History is considered. Covenant is consulted. Psalm chapter 89 verse 14 says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of God's throne. That means love flows from justice, not the other way around. God does not bypass his own system to bless his people. He fulfills it. When he moves on your behalf, he does so with authority that cannot be challenged afterward. This is why when heaven rules, the enemy cannot reclaim ground. This is why restoration after judgment is stable, not fragile. What you are stepping into now is not temporary relief. It is the result of a concluded process. The court has been seated, the matter has been addressed. And when God rules in court, he does not revisit the case. Number 2. Why a settlement had to be released in your name. A settlement is not generosity. It is justice catching up. It means a matter was reviewed and determined to have caused loss, delay, or damage that should not have continued. Heaven does not issue settlements lightly. They are released when something was permitted for a time, but never authorized to define the outcome. That distinction matters. Some of what you endured was not because you lacked faith. It was not because you missed God. It was because endurance was required for the record to be complete. Scripture says in Hebrews chapter 6 verse 12, that the promises are inherited through faith and patience. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active remaining under pressure without surrendering alignment. You stayed when it hurt. You trusted when clarity was absent. You kept your posture even when answers were delayed. That endurance became evidence. A settlement is heaven's way of saying the delay has expired. The resistance no longer has legal standing. What once had permission to test you no longer has permission to restrain you. This is why the release feels sudden, even though the process was long. Courts do not announce progress daily. They announce verdicts once. Joel chapter 2 verse 25 records God saying He will restore the years the locust has eaten. Notice, it does not say He will restore moments. He restores years. That means accumulated loss, compounded delay, layered disappointment. A settlement addresses totals, not fragments. This is also why what is coming will not look like a simple return. It will look like correction, alignment, acceleration. The favor attached to this release is not emotional, it is legal. And legal favor does not ask permission from opposition. It enforces what has already been decided. You are not stepping into something new because you asked louder. You are stepping into it because the case reached its conclusion. Number 3, the accuser spoke, but heaven overruled. There was a voice that spoke against you long before circumstances reflected it. Not a voice you could hear, but one that worked through pressure, delay, and contradiction. Scripture reveals this dynamic without apology. Revelation chapter 12 verse 10 describes the accuser of the brethren as one who accuses them before God day and night. That means accusation is not occasional, it is strategic, it is persistent, and it is calculated to exhaust hope. Every misstep was referenced. Every season where your faith wavered was highlighted. Moments you repented of were still brought up as if mercy had no memory. But accusation does not determine outcome. It only initiates review, and review is where heaven's justice begins to speak. 1 John chapter 2 verse 1 says that we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. An advocate does not deny the facts. He interprets them through covenant. The blood of Christ does not argue emotion, it answers legality. It speaks better things, as Hebrews chapter 12 verse 24 declares, better than failure, better than delay, better than accusation. This is why the ruling came down in your favor, not because the accuser was silent, but because the advocate was final. When heaven overrules, it does not negotiate, it nullifies. The enemy does not lose interest, he loses standing. He cannot appeal what has been sealed by covenant. This overrule explains why you survived what should have crushed you, why you remained standing when the pressure suggested collapse, why peace kept returning even when logic said it should not. The verdict was already forming while the battle was still loud. Now the noise will fade, not because opposition vanished, but because authority has shifted. The ruling has been issued. And once heaven overrules, resistance no longer carries weight. Number 4. What was stolen, delayed, and withheld is being legally returned. This is where many people misunderstand how heaven restores. God is not sentimental about the past, and He is not obligated to return things in the same form they were lost. Restoration in the court of heaven is not about nostalgia, it is about authority. When something was stolen from you unjustly, God does not merely replace the object, He restores your standing. Scripture says in Proverbs chapter 6 verse 31, that when a thief is caught, he must repay sevenfold, even if it costs him all the wealth of his house. That principle reveals something deeper than material return. It speaks of exposure, accountability, and enforced repayment. What once operated in the shadows is brought into the light, and what once delayed you is now required to release you. Some of what you lost cannot come back the same way, and that is mercy. God is not interested in rebuilding old limitations. He is interested in establishing new capacity. You may not recover the exact season, but you will recover momentum. You may not receive the same opportunity, but you will receive a greater scope. Isaiah chapter 61 verse 7 declares that instead of shame there will be a double portion, and instead of dishonor, rejoicing in inheritance. That is legal language. Instead of means substitution by authority, not chance. This is why restoration often feels unfamiliar at first. It does not look like your memory. It looks like advancement. God restores in ways that require maturity, because what is returned now must be sustained later. The delay refined you. The pressure trained you. The waiting prepared you to steward what you could not have handled before. Nothing was lost beyond recovery. Nothing was delayed beyond redemption. What heaven returns is not fragile. It is fortified. And when it arrives, it will not ask permission from your past to move forward. Number 5. Why the timing matters. This was released after endurance. God is never late, but He is exact. Timing in heaven is not driven by urgency, it is governed by readiness. What was just released could not have been trusted to an earlier version of you. That is not punishment. That is protection. Scripture says in James chapter 1 verses 2 through 4 that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and endurance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. That phrase, finish its work, is critical. It implies process with an end date, not endless delay. You were not waiting because heaven was undecided. You were waiting because endurance was still forming authority in you. Endurance teaches you how to carry weight without resentment, how to remain aligned without constant reassurance, how to trust God without demanding immediate evidence. Those lessons are not emotional, they are structural. They build spiritual capacity. Galatians chapter 6 verse 9 says that we should not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not lose heart. Due season is not a vague encouragement. It is a specific window determined by heaven. When that season arrives, resistance does not get a vote. Harvest is enforced by timing, not effort. This is why the release feels sudden. You were strengthening quietly, while heaven was watching carefully. The moment endurance completed its assignment, timing shifted. What once required persistence now requires positioning. What once demanded patience now demands discernment. If this had come earlier, it might have distracted you. If it had come later, it would have discouraged you. It arrived exactly when endurance had produced stability instead of desperation. The delay refined your motives, clarified your priorities, and anchored your faith. Now the timing protects the blessing instead of testing it. Nothing about this release is random. It is synchronized with who you have become. Number 6. How God delivers settlements differently than we expect. When heaven releases a settlement, it rarely arrives in the way the natural mind predicts. We often expect dramatic reversals, public vindication, or instant compensation. But God is not interested in spectacle. He is interested in sustainability. His settlements are designed to establish you, not just surprise you. Scripture says in Isaiah chapter 55 verses 8 through 9 that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, and His ways are higher than our ways. That difference becomes most evident at the moment of fulfillment. What you imagined as one large moment may come as a series of aligned steps. What you expected as a single door may unfold as multiple confirmations. Heaven often releases authority first, then opportunity follows. Many of God's settlements begin internally before they appear externally. Peace returns before provision. Clarity comes before movement. Confidence is restored before resources arrive. This is intentional. God does not want you chasing the blessing. He wants the blessing responding to your alignment. When internal order is restored, external order follows naturally. Luke chapter 16 verse 10 reminds us that whoever is faithful with little is also faithful with much. Settlements often test stewardship immediately. You may notice new trust placed on you, increased responsibility, or invitations that require discernment rather than excitement. Do not dismiss these as small. They are part of the payout. Authority is being returned before visibility. This is also why comparison becomes dangerous in this season. Your settlement will not look like someone else's, because the case was not the same. God customizes restoration to match calling. What matters is not speed, but direction. If what is unfolding aligns you more deeply with purpose, it is working exactly as heaven intended. Do not rush the manifestation or demand a specific form. Let God deliver it His way. Settlements from heaven are precise, layered, and intentional. They arrive with wisdom built in, so that what is restored is not lost again. Number 7. What you must not do after a heavenly verdict. After a verdict is released, the greatest risk is not opposition, it is misalignment. Many believers lose momentum not because the enemy regains power, but because they respond incorrectly to favor. A settlement does not remove responsibility, it increases it. Heaven's verdict establishes your position, but how you walk from that position determines what you retain. One of the most dangerous mistakes in this season is returning to old patterns of thinking. You cannot keep rehearsing past losses once heaven has closed the case. Isaiah chapter 43 verse 18 says, "Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old." That is not denial, it is obedience. Revisiting what God has ruled on invites unnecessary confusion. The past may explain you, but it no longer defines you. Another mistake is announcing prematurely what heaven has resolved privately. Jesus often instructed those he healed to say nothing, not because the miracle was weak, but because timing protects testimony. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 7 reminds us there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Not everyone is entitled to information about your settlement. Some people only understand your delay, not your elevation. You must also resist the urge to overcorrect. When restraint lifts, it can be tempting to move impulsively, but acceleration without discernment leads to exhaustion. Proverbs chapter 19 verse 2 warns that desire without knowledge is not good, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses the way. Heaven did not rush this verdict. You do not need to rush its outcome. Finally, do not downgrade obedience now that relief has arrived. Consistency sustained you in the waiting, it will secure you in the release. The verdict did not eliminate the need for humility, prayer, or discernment. It affirmed them. What heaven has granted is stable, but it must be stewarded. The case is closed. Do not reopen it with doubt, fear, or careless movement. Walk forward with clarity, not urgency. Number 8. How to walk worthy of what has been granted. Walking worthy of a heavenly settlement is not about proving you deserve it. The verdict already settled that. It is about aligning your daily posture with the authority that has been restored to you. Worthiness in Scripture is not perfection, it is agreement. Agreement with what heaven has decided, even when your emotions are still catching up. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 1 urges believers to walk in a manner worthy of the calling they have received. Notice the calling comes first, the walk follows. You do not walk to earn authority, you walk because authority has been given. This means your decisions now carry more weight than they did before. Small compromises will feel louder. Discernment will become sharper. Conviction will come quicker. These are not restrictions, they are signals of increased responsibility. One of the primary ways you walk worthy is by guarding alignment. Alignment with God's voice, not just His promises. Many people love what God gives, but drift from how God leads. John chapter 10 verse 27 says that His sheep hear His voice and follow Him. Settlements are sustained by listening, not momentum. The same voice that guided you through delay will guide you through increase. You will also notice that your tolerance for disorder decreases. What once felt manageable will now feel heavy. Certain conversations will no longer fit. Certain environments will feel draining instead of familiar. This is not arrogance, it is recalibration. Heaven has adjusted your internal measurements to match your new standing. Gratitude becomes essential in this season, not performative gratitude, but anchored recognition. Gratitude keeps you aware that what you carry came from God, not self-effort. Psalm chapter 75 verses 6 through 7 reminds us that promotion does not come from the east or the west, but from God who brings one down and lifts another up. Walk steadily, walk humbly, walk attentively. You are not chasing what was released. You are learning to live from it. Conclusion. Now hear this with clarity and peace. Nothing is pending anymore. You are not in review, not in delay, not in suspense. The ruling has been issued. The case is closed. What remains is not for heaven to decide, but for you to walk out. This is not a moment for striving or second-guessing. It is a moment for agreement. Scripture says in Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17 that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and that every tongue which rises against you in judgment shall be condemned. That is courtroom language. It means accusations were addressed, resistance was evaluated, and authority was reassigned. What once spoke against you no longer carries weight. What once delayed you no longer has jurisdiction. Do not look for fireworks to confirm what has already been settled. God often seals his greatest verdicts with quiet confidence, not noise. Peace is the evidence. Stability is the sign. Forward movement without strain is the confirmation. When heaven rules, it does not need to explain itself repeatedly. You may not see everything at once, but you will recognize alignment returning. Doors will open without force, provision will come without panic, direction will feel clear without pressure. This is how settlements from heaven unfold, steadily, securely, unmistakably. Hold your posture, guard your heart, stay attentive to the voice that carried you through the waiting. Philippians chapter 1 verse 6 reminds us that he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Completion is not a threat, it is a promise. You are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are not late. You are stepping into what was already decided. Walk forward with trust. Heaven has spoken, and what it released carries your name.